What is jazz? This truly original American music form rooted in the African American experience has been the subject of much exploration. But is it simply a genre of music, or a style, or an aesthetic? Could it be more? Could it be an approach and way to engage the world? A way to translate one's life out loud, while at the same time hearing and responding to others doing the same? Science today is discovering new insights into mindfulness, neuroplasticity, growth mindset, group genius, and flow. Because of this, perhaps we need to explore jazz again, for embodied within this art and those that practice it is the synthesis of all these ideas. In exploring jazz, there could be so many suggestions and ideas for spirituality, leadership, and collaboration. I'm John Lee, and I'm the chaplain at United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities. On Saturday, June 2015, I sat down to have a conversation about jazz with Sarah Bellamy, the co-artistic director of Penumbra Theater, and also with Lou Bellamy, the founder of Penumbra and co-artistic director. Their friend and noted composer and jazz trumpeter, Hannibal Lokumbe, joined us in this conversation. We met before their season kickoff and performance of Revolution Love to talk about what jazz is and how it has influenced their own art. Penumbra Theater was founded in 1976 with the ethos of jazz infused within their mission of illuminating the human condition through the prism of the African American experience. Hannibal Lokumbe has worked with Penumbra on a variety of productions. He has played with jazz legends such as Gil Evans, Pharoah Sanders, and Elvin Jones. His compositions have premiered at Carnegie Hall and have been recorded by the likes of the Chicago and Detroit Symphony Orchestras. This film is not an exhaustive examination of jazz, nor are these thoughts the exclusively essential aspects of this art. But in talking with these three influential artists, what appears is that jazz is more than simply music or an art form. Perhaps Alice Coltrane was correct in saying, "This is worship." If this is an act of faith and search for meaning, then this could have implications and influences on everything from theological education to a different style of leadership that simultaneously allows for the essential component of following, to even what it means to be truly human and in community with others.
You know, what I think isn't given enough attention is the amount, and many artists don't want to share it because I've seen artists want to act as though their performance, their gift, their writing, their music is sort of something like a funnel from them to God, and we don't tell young people enough that it's hard work and study and going through all of that, and you really have to study hard before you can get to the place of doing jazz and playing the stuff. You got to know your instrument. In my case, it's my body, and so forth. And so until you get that kind of mastery or knowledge of your instrument, that's the only way you can get to that place that you're open to hear it coming, so it can come into you and then back out. But you can't do that without that facility, without that hard work and study.
It's devotion. It's devotion. A lot of many young musicians come up. I said, they have hit records and making millions of dollars, and I said, well, one young lady, she's a doctor. She has someone gave her the title of a doctor, and I said, well, I really would like you to learn to read music because in connection with your great voice, it will open up new vistas to you personally and professionally. She said, well, I feel embarrassed, Hannibal. I'm a doctor and I can't read music. I said, well, you know, it doesn't mean you don't alter people's consciousness when you sing. But I'm just saying, this is a profession of study. You have to study. You have to work. You have to study to really see what this is and what's available to you to give you more options.
Because he plays the horn, that doesn't make any noise unless it comes out of his body. It isn't like playing one of those instruments where you play from the outside. So there's a connection there that is, I think, profound. It's breath. And breath is life. And I've heard him just blow through that horn and make no noise at all except breath sounds. And it's arresting. I mean, it catches you. It touches something that's really powerful.
Yeah. We talk about that when we train young people, too. One of the criticisms I remember very early on about, watching other acting, and it's so obvious when you get it, but when you see actors who are just waiting for another actor to finish their lines, and they almost kind of like, okay, they're done. And with their bodies, they're keeping this beat. And the thing that I love about Penumbra, and I've done a lot of archival work from the elder company members who built this style, this aesthetic, and all of them, and I shared this with you a while ago, all of them can say they know what it's not, but they have that's not it, but they have a really hard time saying what it is. And I think one of the things that it is there's always life on stage. So the actors never come out of that moment, and sometimes it takes hours. Like, I remember you playing characters that would come home with you, when and having like a different
for
sort of
months.
Yeah. But these moments that especially I've seen in your direction that are silent but charged between people, so that kind of energy when an actor is at the craft level where they can hold that energy and the silence works, it's incredible.
It is.
It's incredible. And every person on that stage is contributing to that moment, as opposed to some styles where the one actor who's speaking is all the focus.
On the night before a mission, you gave a buddy your hiding places, as solemnly as a man dictating his will. There's a chocolate bar in my Bible. My whiskey bottle is inside my bedroll.
And beat up flying tigers that had seen action in Burma, they shot down 3 German jets. They were the only outfit in the American Air Corps to sink a destroyer with fighter planes. Fighter planes with names like By Request. Sometimes the radios didn't even work.
They called themselves Hell from Heaven. This spook watch, my father's old friends. It was always maximum effort. A whole squadron of brother men raced across the tarmac and mounted their planes.
My tent mate was a guy named Starks. The funny thing about me and Starks was that my air mattress leaked and Starks didn't. Every time we went up, I gave my mattress to Starks and put his on my cot. One day we were strafing a train. Strafing's bad news. You have to fly so low and slow, you're a pretty clear target. My other wingman and I exhausted our ammunition and got out. I recognized Starks by his red tail and his rudder's trim tabs. He couldn't pull up his nose. He dived into the train and bought the farm. I found his chocolate, 3 eggs, and a full 1/5 of his hoarded up whiskey. I used his mattress for the rest of my tour. It still bothers me sometimes. I was sleeping on his breath.
think you can be African American and living in the United States without getting that negativity and that you can't do this and it's not possible for you. Those old people were so important because they said that stuff so simply. My grandmother said, if it don't kill you, it'll make you strong. and it's the truth. It might kill your ass. I mean, it really might. But if it don't, when you come out of that, Jack, you got something.
That metal for that sword, that samurai sword is forged again, it's turned again. And so then you have these W.E.B. Du Bois, and you have these Harriet Tubmans, and you have these Sojourner Truths, you have these Dr. Kings, these Malcolm X, because they've been folded many, many times.
And you got, see, that's the power of knowing, and you're so onto that, knowing where you came from. Because she came up with this image of the Sankofa bird for our company. Because it's important for you and for me, because I'm your father and I helped start this thing, that you don't want to burn it all up. That you want to look back and let that inform you. That's power. You see, if you give that up, you're giving up much of your power, much of your strength, and your place in the world.
If you ever find yourself somewhere lost and surrounded by enemies who won't let you speak your own language, who destroy your statues and instruments, who ban your boom, bop, boom, then you are in trouble. Deep trouble. They ban your boom, bop, boom. You in deep trouble. Probably take you several hundred years to get out.
Integration was
double-edged sword. Yeah,
it was a killer.
Yeah.
It was a killer, but with integration, the very teacher who taught me music, he was offered a job at the white school as a janitor. And he's the greatest music teacher ever, period. What he taught me in the 9th grade was enough to go on and find whatever I needed, even to this day. So when and I saw that pain in his eyes. I was not unaffected by what I saw in these fathers and these mothers of the community, because they all had to face that. That was a killer.
I think the other piece that is that really troubles me is that if you're not connected to people who can share that history with you, if you can't find your way to the texts, if you can't find your way to the music, you become adrift. You know, it reminds me of what Uno Diaz says when he says, if people can't see themselves reflected, they become a vampire. In society. They become monsters because they need someone to show them the potential of their own greatness. And I remember sitting with this woman who was the first to desegregate her school. She was 93, I think. And she was saying, I don't understand the kids these days. They don't care. They're not involved. Like, what is it? And I was listening to all these elders sort of lament the fact that young people weren't civically engaged. And what I realized is I said, with all due respect, you have been too great in some way. They don't understand the stepping stone of how you got to that moment when you cross that threshold. They just see the threshold and the celebration. It's like how we think of Dr. Martin Luther King and his huge impact on the world. And a lot of young people think, well, I could never do that. I can never be that. But they don't understand the moments of each step that he took and all of the people that were there to support him, which brings me back again to community and jazz. Like, you need everybody to lift one person. And then that person recedes, and then you lift another person.
I think has something to do with African American culture, where you can see it in the dance, you can see it in several art forms where there isn't a star, that it's about the communal coming together of the moment, and out of that, the one who has whatever it takes at the moment steps out, but not away from.
Yeah.
And that makes for that power, I think.
I would always say to Miss Parks, Miss Till, I'm sorry I wasn't there when you went to the train station to claim Emmett's remains. I'm sorry I wasn't there when the dogs came at you. They just laughed. They laughed. Oh, baby, believe me, you'll have your fight.
Yes.
Because there's something powerful in that, because they were saying, basically they were saying to me, it'll never end.
Yeah.
And so that's why this is so important. That's why what you do is so important. And when the beasts come at you, that's all you need to remember. Because when the beasts come at people who have all of the things that this society says is successful, they have nowhere to go. And that's the moment of truth, when that thing come at you. And you don't have nobody. You can say, well, I got my dad, or well, I got all these actors and actresses here that know the value of this. I mean, that would shave skin off for it. See, that's the real treasure. It's the real treasure.
I saw that yesterday. We were stretched, as you were talking about, in tech yesterday, and this little girl that Hannibal had just spoken about, who's written this essay that makes me cry every time she reads it. We had gotten to the end of the day and still hadn't gotten to the end of the show. And so she's on at the very end. I called her up. She came up, started reading her piece, and we ran out of time. And I said, well, now these are all union actors and so forth, and so when it's time, when the clock says they're ready to go, and I said, it's time. To a person, one person had an appointment they had to run for. Everyone in there said, we'll stay. Let her read her stuff. Because they wanted this little girl. So they said, she's been sitting here all day. We're not going to just walk out on her. And I went, damn, I couldn't make them stay.
That's legacy, man.
Yeah, I know. They recognize the
legacy.
importance of that individually. And it was a good moment, wasn't it? You were in the room.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And, that's the connective tissue that we have to continue to weave. To me, that's the heart of what we're grappling with this season, is everything that has been vilified about Black people trying to survive in this world, to raise our children, to keep our families safe. It's about love. It's about self-love. It's about love for your family. It's about community, and we won't allow it to be spun in this space into that other thing, because that's not the truth of it.
I remember when I got, and it was after graduate school. I had been already out making money, working in the biz and all that sort of stuff. But I remember when I got control of my stuff enough so that I started out as an actor. I would be on stage or taking notes after a rehearsal or something, and I wouldn't write down the director's directions for me because I didn't want to know what I was going to do. I wanted to be in the moment on the stage and have that stimulus or that emotion come to me, and then get the experience of putting it all together in that instant. And that was the jazz. That's the stuff you don't know where it's coming from.
You know, that's a perfect example of improvisation, because if I'm playing a song, so that's the melody, right? But when I'm playing the solo, before I get to here, something has already formed in my mind. So I'm playing something before I get to it. I mean, it's the ultimate expression for me of faith. When people say faith.
Yes. Stepping out there. Yeah.
That's what makes it. That's what keeps it so interesting to me, because that's life. You don't know.
You know, there's a way that in order to riff off of one another, I think you have to respect and trust each other, and that is not something that you can force. It's just how you walk in the world, and when you meet other people that resonate with that, that's a beautiful thing. And I see that in the way you both work, and also in the way that the ensemble here works often. You're responsible for your health, your willingness to be present, your instrument, your gift, your study. And you can do as much of that as possible, but if you don't have other people around you who are also doing that, you're not going to get to that full experience. And I think one of the things that I've learned coming into a position working with you and starting to work more in depth with the company is I don't have to know everything. And that feels, there's a trust in that feels really good. I know I have to know what I can bring, but it's amazing to see a director, you know, kind of say, I need this, and somebody be there to do it. And the director doesn't have to know the light cue and the keys to tap to make something happen, but it all comes together in this moment. And it couldn't be done if everyone wasn't there. And I love that.
In fact, it can't be done if you tell them too much.
Right.
Or do too much.
Right. Yeah.
If I am working with designers or actors, if I tell them too precisely, I've found, what it is I want, that's what I get. That's exactly what I get. But if I am a little nebulous and perhaps tell them how I want to feel, or whatever that is, then they put themselves in it, and I end up getting so much more that I would have never had the insight to ask for. You know.
And I think there's so much courage in willing to be present, fully present in a moment. I think that is such a challenge for so many Americans. And I experience it mostly through writing, because that's my tool, I suppose, where I feel like I'm not working. And it's just like it's coming, and I even start to rock with it, and it just comes, you know. And that's like both A Boy and His King and this piece, Revolution Love, that we're working on. It was like, you know, it was, I can't figure this out, and this thing, and this, and then all of a sudden there's just this slide, and that feels so good.
Part of this is an ability to do intense concentration, and that's training. Summoning all of your force to one point and making it real. I've seen dancers make me cry by focus, by nothing but focus, where their entire body and every muscle is focused toward one thing, and it's too much. I've heard you do it, you know, where it's too much, it overwhelms you.
Yeah.
It's too powerful.
The other thing I've heard you say often is that you can be very well studied and you can learn your technique, but you have to be able to incorporate it with your life and your living. And that's the piece where I think you become a master, where you've sharpened your technique to a point that it can actually start influencing how you're seeing your life unfold and how you're translating your life for other people. I see both of you doing that in your work. You know, you're like tuning forks, really, that start to vibrate back what your perception and interpretation and translation of your living is for others. And that's what makes it so profound, because it helps them understand their lives better.
It's a powerful band. It's a band. The actors and the actresses here. So I'm playing off of their tones, the tones in their bodies. So it affects how we relate to each other. It affects what I play. If Shay is emotional, then I respond to that. Here's like I'm a drummer, because if you're speaking a line and you go, I got to respond. I'm going to respond to that. That's the mastery of this craft called jazz. It's responsive. It's love. There's some serious love going on, because when you love somebody, you really listen to them. And that's why this piece is so important, because in this society, we pretend to love each other. And it's obvious we don't really love each other because we don't really listen to each other. And in jazz, you gotta listen.
And that's
a
the
must.
piece in there, yeah.
Gotta listen. And I mean from here, you gotta listen. So that's the difference. That when you hear Train or somebody, it's because they're all listening. So here we're really listening. I'm listening. Every word come out of Dennis' mouth, I'm listening. I'm listening for the tone. I'm listening for the feeling of serious jazz on the stage.
And it feels.
Those of us who hope to be their allies should not be surprised if and when this day comes, when those who have been locked up and locked out finally have the chance to speak and truly be heard. What we hear is rage. Rage might frighten us. It may remind us of riots, uprisings, and buildings aflame. We may be tempted to control it or douse it with buckets of doubt, dismay, or belief. But we should do no such thing.
Instead, when a young man who was born in the ghetto and who knows little of life beyond the walls of his prison cell and the invisible cage that has become his life turns to us in bewilderment and rage, we should do nothing more than look him in the eye and tell him the truth.
If we want to do more than just end mass incarceration,
if we want to put an end to the history of racial caste in America,
we must lay down our racial pride.
Join hands with people of all colors who are not content to wait for change to trickle down.
and say to those who would stand in our way,
Accept all of us or
None.
I was 5 years old. And I think the first profound thing happened to me in terms of music and my direction. I was the water boy. They gave me the job of the water boy. Because when you pick cotton, you go into the bowls, and the bowls are sharp, and they'll cut you. And my skin was too thin. I was bleeding everywhere. They wrapped my hands, put me in a bandage, and put me under the wagon where it was cool. And so from the wagon, I could see what was going on. This vast plateau of white cotton and these bodies bending, and it was very interesting. Around 2 o'clock, when it got unbearably hot, they stopped talking about what was going on in the village, who got married, who ran off with whose husband or wife, and they started singing. And I put that together real quick. And when it got so hot that these heat formations were coming off of their bodies, I would run out and take them water. And when they were singing, they would take the water and throw it in the air. Because they didn't need the water, they had the music. So I put all that together, and I said, music can make hot cold, and cold hot. It can affect temperature. It can affect morale. Then I started putting that together. That was the first, most profound impact on me. So I always use that as a litmus test when I'm playing. Am I affecting someone's life? Every note you can do that with. That's been pretty much my guide and is my guide. You know, but to liberate people with the art, with the culture. That's what is so spectacular about all of this. And this big heart that Sarah has on the poster, revolution in his heart. You know, we were talking about that. To enlighten someone through love is the most powerful revolution there is.
What God or whatever this it's connective tissue, and that it exists between us. That's what it is, and that I've heard you do it with that music. I've seen it in writing. I've seen it in art. It does something between people, and that's what jazz is. It's that space in there that is so undefinable.
It reaches and it conjures and it
feels
and it draws out and it
and it's
pushes
that
even the boundaries of the past.
Yes,
where you can't even quantify. You can't even put your arms around it.
It's like a mind, right? You know, and that's what ultimately makes us relatives as humans. If we're connected to that mind, that mind, that all-being mind, and that's why we can do what we do the way we do, because the mind is the leader. And when you know that the mind is the leader, you will respect and you will really grow from people who have experiences you might not have in what you do, as in acting, producing. So you listen, and you're glad to listen. You're glad to listen because you hear so much other stuff from people connected to something else. It's certainly not this mind.
As you said, you know, the problems are so diffuse. There is not a clear us and them any longer. There is not a clear thing toward which we're striving. There is not Right now we're lamenting the fact that our children are dying, that our people aren't safe in spaces, that police immediately pull a gun rather than ask a question. And that's not new, but I think it's so visible now because of the internet and things that people are feeling really bombarded. So my sense is, and it's the same thing I learned here watching theater happen, is I don't have to be good at everything, but there are experts who know. And I can go to advocacy organizations and health and wellness organizations and forge partnerships that will serve both of us in ways that are bigger than anything we could do independently of one another. And so I think right now it's about finding the right partners to walk with us. And, we were in a brainstorming session with a marketing consultant group, and they said, what are the issues you really want to work on? What's top of mind for you? And the list was long, and it was everything from racial justice to environmental justice to food deserts to these things that are plaguing communities. He said, well, but you're a theater and black theater. And, shouldn't you be focusing in keenly on racial justice? I said, environmental justice and the fact that people can't find an apple in certain communities is racial justice. You can't disentangle it.
I compare what we do here with what major regionals do with all the resources in the world. And they still can't do what we do with meager resources.
Ain't nothing like the real thing.
I know it. And you go like, this isn't fair. It isn't fair at all. But I don't know if given the chance, I'll start to cry if I'm not careful, but that I would change it. Do you know what I mean? I just don't know if I'd change it.
Absolutely.
Because that's where the stuff is.
That's right.
That's what gives it the immediacy and
the,
so
I ain't heard nothing like I heard in that cotton field.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've perused the scores of Bach, Brahms, everybody. I've heard nothing like what I heard in that field. And the piece I'm writing now is informed by what I heard in that field. And so if that makes what I write different, then I don't waste time thinking about that. I just deal with what the ancestors are giving me. And that's some powerful stuff. You talk about liberation. Come on, it gets to be 120 degrees in those fields. And I'm going to take them water and they throw it away? How much more proof do you need of the power of the spirit and of music, of song, and of struggle? Man, that's the gamma ray burst of life. The thing that really hurts my heart is that I feel so many people won't get to know their divine selves. To get to that point, you first have to deal with your physical reality. For me, I had to come to understand this. And through the music, I was able to do it. And now I can see the other part. Now I can see the divine part. But I never could see the divine part until I saw this part. And I come to understand the miracle of this and the beauty of this. None of those images kept me from knowing that there's something that this came from. There's something beyond this. And it's about the breath. Nothing kept me from that. All of these well-planned designs to make me live and die in the image that this country said I was illegitimate, stupid, can't do this, can't do that, lazy, all that stuff, violent, all that stuff. Nothing could, just like Einstein said, the music helped him get to E equal MC squared. The music helped me get to that light that I see, that supersedes all this stuff we're stuck in. It's like, that's my pain, that we're stuck, that we're stuck, we get stuck. And that's the primary use of what, every word I write, every note I play. That's what I want to do. I want humans to not get stuck. I want to unstick them. I want to pull them out of that mud.
During the 1940s, black psychologists Kenneth and Mamie Clark conducted a series of tests using dolls to study children's perceptions of race. Black children, boys and girls ages 3 to 7, were given the choice of 4 different dolls that were identical except for their skin color. The test was intended to measure the self-esteem of black children as a result of segregation. They were asked to choose one doll based on a series of questions such as, which doll is the smart doll? Which doll is the pretty doll? Which doll is the good doll? Almost all the children preferred the white doll. When asked to explain why one doll was dumb, ugly, or bad, the children simply answered, because they're black.
And still I rise.
The test has since been recreated in psychology departments around the country. It was brought back into the public eye when CNN conducted the experiment last year on both white and black children. The results were almost the same as the 1940s. Little white children saw themselves as superior, and little black children still believe they are lesser than because the world has told them so. Before they're even old enough to explain why, even with segregation gone from the public eye, children of color are experiencing internalized oppression. We are taught that our history started with colonizers, slavery, and white intervention. Our bodies get colonized, the truth gets whitewashed, and our roots get pulled from the earth before we get a chance to grow. We are taught that when we get angry at injustice, that we are irrational and overly aggressive, and that Martin Luther King would be very disappointed in us because he never got angry. We are taught that Rosa Parks was tired after a long day of work. So tired, in fact, that she decided to get herself arrested. Miss Parks deserves a little more credit than that. She was part of an organized movement. Every move was strategic. Which bus, which driver, what police would respond, and how they would react to a woman rather than a man.
Come on.
If we don't see ourselves in the activists we are exposed to, we can never become them, and the cycle of internalized oppression continues.
That's right.
Don't stir the pot, don't raise suspicions, don't start problems that aren't there. Each school system has managed to interweave respectability politics into every history curriculum. We are taught to be victims rather than revolutionaries. I wonder if Tamir Rice, age 12,
Tamir Rice,
and Diana Jones, age 7,
Diana Jones,
both shot by officers of the law, died at a time in their lives when they might have pointed to a white doll and said that it was prettier, smarter, and better than the one that looked like them. These moments become real-life doll tests. Which child is a thug? Which child poses a threat? Which child deserved to die? We can argue that the doll test is a deeply flawed psychological examination, but when a local police department uses actual pictures of black men as target practice, I have to wonder, in those split-second moments of bias, when a decision has to be made, shoot or don't shoot, that the good doll, bad doll, black-white binary could be more telling than we think. Every day, police and juries face the doll test. So what's the solution? When I was little, my mama handed me Latina dolls, Asian dolls, Native American dolls, and when she gave me a black or brown doll, she reminded me that they were beautiful, saying,
They look just like you, and you have to make her smart and strong and know that she has to fight for what she believes in.
And in that moment, my incredible mother managed to teach a 5-year-old active resistance. I wish I could do the same for the children who participated in the doll tests, and for Tamir and Ayana, I would let them know that their pain is valid and shared, that they do not have to justify their lives the way people will justify their deaths. They have the right to be angry, but they also have the right to experience joy and love and self-acceptance as much as any other child. I would remind them that they are not disposable, that they have value, and that their lives matter.
Yes. Their lives matter.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, child. Your life matters.
I stand before you as someone who will not ascribe to the victim narrative. I refuse to be blamed for my own oppression.
That's right.
I will not be broken. I am making a choice to be revolutionary.
Yes.
To love myself, my blackness, my brownness, my womanhood
Yes.
for all that it is. I have placed respectability on a shelf in order to join a revolution.
Yeah.
One where we are free to speak truth to power. One where we reclaim our histories, our narratives, ourselves. My name is Mansuda Arora. I was a student at the Penumbra Summer Institute, and this was my senior speech.